Last week, we talked about energy before execution because when you're exhausted, everything feels harder. But today, we're tackling a different problem. You have the energy and you know what needs to be done. You even block the time on your calendar. And then you don't start. Or maybe you sort of start. You open your laptop, check your email, refill your coffee, look for the perfect playlist, answer a text, research something that is maybe loosely related to your task. And 45 minutes later, you've been incredibly busy without actually moving the needle on the thing that matters. Sound familiar? If so, welcome to being human. The problem isn't usually the work. The problem is the start. Because the first 5 minutes of any task often determine whether you'll build momentum or surrender it. That's why today's decision fitness principle is simple. Master the first 5 minutes. Because how you start a block largely determines how you finish it. If you fumble the opening, you invite distraction. If you win the opening, momentum begins to carry you. This is Goals and Grace with certified high-performance coach, Reverend Dr. Juliet Spencer. Ready to lead with love, not depletion? Let's go. One of the things I've noticed in coaching is that people rarely procrastinate because they're lazy. They procrastinate because they're uncertain or overwhelmed. Sometimes it's because they suffer from perfectionism, or they're afraid, or the project just feels too big. Maybe the conversation feels uncomfortable, or the decision feels risky. So instead of moving forward, we drift sideways. And here's the tricky part. Drift can feel productive. You organize, research, prepare, color code, rearrange, create a prettier to-do list, and somehow convince yourself you're making progress. Meanwhile, the thing that would actually move your life forward sits untouched. I've been there. Believe me. Have you ever sat down to work on something important and suddenly become deeply concerned about whether your spice cabinet is organized correctly? And I don't even cook that much. My friend, that is not productivity. That's avoidance wearing a productivity costume. And our brains are incredibly good at it. That's why high performers don't rely on motivation. They rely on rituals. I've learned over the past several years that this really is important. A ritual gives your brain a predictable on-ramp. Instead of negotiating with yourself every time it's time to work, you simply follow the process. Why is this important? Because the inner critic quiets. And thankfully, the excuses get smaller and action becomes easier. I call this process the 5-minute on-ramp, which consists of 5 one-minute items. No fluff, no friction, just a clear path from intention to action. So let's dive in. Minute 1. Clear the slate. Before you start, release whatever you carried into the room, into the session. Stand up, roll your shoulders, take a deep breath, shake out your hands, and say quietly, I release tension. I choose intention. It sounds simple because it is simple, but simple doesn't mean insignificant. Most people try to focus while carrying the emotional residue of at least the previous hour, if not the last 72 hours. And that's true no matter what it is. The difficult conversation or the frustrating email. Maybe it's the unexpected expense. Or, as I've heard from several clients, it might be the family drama that they just can't get out of their minds. You can't always leave those things behind emotionally, but you can stop handing them the steering wheel. This is something that I learned from my own mentor because it really does make a difference. A physical reset tells your brain, hey, we're beginning something new. So, like I said, stand up, roll your shoulders, take a deep, cleansing breath, shake out your hands, and say quietly, I release tension, I choose intention. Minute number 2, state the mission. I've been a big believer for a long time that when something is important, you say it out loud. And I was reminded of this again by my mentor, Dr. Forbes Riley, only last week. When you are preparing for anything important, anything, state the mission out loud. One sentence, not 3 or 7, just one. So it might be the mission for this block is to write the introduction to the presentation. Or the mission for this block is to finish the budget. The mission for this block is to schedule 3 sales calls. If you can't state the mission clearly, you probably don't have one. What you have is a feeling, and feelings rarely produce focused work. In other words, your brain loves a target. When you gain clarity, you usually also gain courage. When you speak your mission sentence out loud, it influences your brain in a way that will take more seriously what you want to accomplish and make success more likely. Now, it's true you might feel kind of silly sitting in your office and speaking out loud to yourself, but trust me, your brain will thank you for it. Minute 3, stage the scene. Look around your environment because your environment is either helping you succeed or it's quietly sabotaging you. It's really important to close unnecessary tabs, to put your phone somewhere that requires standing up to reach it. Have you noticed that when your phone is sitting face up beside your keyboard, it somehow develops magical powers? If you're like me, you don't intend to pick it up, but yet somehow 10 minutes later you're watching a video of a golden retriever riding a skateboard or some genius making the most incredible decor out of a Dollar General sale item. In other words, you need to protect yourself from yourself. Put only the tools you need in front of you. So have water nearby, a timer ready, and your workspace clear. Your environment should answer the question, what would make success easier? However, this is not the time for you to redo your office decor or to organize your desk drawers. It's a time to focus on your immediate surroundings and to minimize distractions. Minute number 4, start with output. This might be the most important step. Don't start by researching or organizing. Start by producing. Write the first paragraph or draft the first email. Create the first slide title. Make something, anything, because action creates clarity far more effectively than thinking creates clarity. Wow, I better say that again. Action creates clarity far more effectively than thinking creates clarity. Some of the biggest breakthroughs in my life happened after I started imperfectly, not before. So go ahead and start. Minute number 5, lock the loop. Before you begin the block in earnest, write down 2 things. First, what does done look like? Second, if you get interrupted, where will you restart? For example, done equals draft through section 2. The next step equals choose supporting story. Now, if the phone rings or somebody needs you, you don't have to waste energy figuring out where to begin. You've already left breadcrumbs for your future self, and your future self will thank you. One of the reasons that I love doorway triggers is that they work the same way. For quite some time, I've used a simple practice when entering a room where I'm going to lead. Sometimes it's the church sanctuary, sometimes it's a coaching call, sometimes it's a meeting. And as I walk through the doorway, I remind myself I enter this space ready to serve. That tiny trigger helps me shift from whatever happened before to who I choose to be now. And so I remind myself I entered this space ready to serve. And sometimes, if I'm particularly stressed out about what's coming next, I'll ask myself, and who do I want to be in this next session? Who do I want to be in this next task or in this next conversation or this next meeting? I enter this space ready to serve. And who do I want to be? And isn't that really what decision fitness is? Choosing who you'll be before circumstances choose for you? So protect those first 5 minutes and do not negotiate with distractions. Don't negotiate with perfectionism either, or with that voice that says you'll feel more ready later. Because most of the time, readiness follows action, not the other way around. Readiness follows action. So as we close, remember this. You don't need a perfect morning, a perfect schedule, or even a perfect mindset. But you do need a better beginning. 5 intentional minutes can rescue an entire work block. For that matter, 5 intentional minutes can turn hesitation into momentum and can help you become the person you have been trying to be. So this week, practice the on-ramp. Clear the slate, state the mission, stage the scene, start with output, and lock the loop. Because success isn't usually determined just by how you finish. It's often determined by whether you even begin. And when you master the first 5 minutes, you'll be amazed at how often the next 45 take care of themselves. That's decision fitness in action. As we close, I hope you'll remember this. The first 5 minutes are rarely about the task in front of you. They're about the decision you're making about yourself. Will you drift or will you direct? Will you react or will you lead? Will you wait until you're confident or will you take action and allow confidence to catch up? Every meaningful goal is built one beginning at a time. Just like books are written one writing session at a time, or businesses are built one focus block at a time. Just like relationships are strengthened one intentional conversation at a time. Priorities, goals, visions, callings are fulfilled one faithful step at a time. And those faithful steps almost always begin in the first 5 minutes. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need more willpower. You don't need to feel inspired every single day. I don't even feel inspired every day. But you do need a repeatable way to start. That's why the 5-minute on-ramp matters. Because it helps you remove drama, it quiets the excuses, and it lowers the barrier between intention and action. And believe me, over time, those small beginnings create extraordinary results. This week, I challenge you to use the on-ramp before every important work block. Not just one time or when you feel like it, but every time. Every single time. Clear the slate, state the mission, stage the scene, start with output, lock the loop. And then notice what changes. Notice how much faster that you're able to focus and how much less energy you spend negotiating with yourself. I am confident that you will find that momentum will appear after you begin. And if you're finding that you know what to do but struggle to consistently follow through, that's exactly where coaching can help. Sometimes the difference isn't knowledge, it's having somebody help you identify the patterns or habits and blind spots that keep stealing your momentum. If that's where you are, I would love to have a conversation with you because your goals deserve more than good intentions. They deserve a strategy and they deserve support. Next week, we're going to take this even farther because once you've mastered the first 5 minutes, there's still one major threat to your productivity, your focus, and your peace: distractions. We'll talk about how to distraction proof your work blocks, protect your attention, and stay focused long enough to do the work that you really want to do and the work that really matters. To remember this, my friend, who you become is built one decision at a time. And sometimes the most important decision you'll make all day is the decision simply to begin. Until next time, may God bless you with goals and grace.